And now we come to the books.
Right.
The Hungry Tide.
Is that your favourite?
Well, it was the first I read.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was the one you got the Catherine Cookson prize for.
Yes.
Now that was...
Oh, well, that really was a fairy story in itself, of course, because it was my first book. I'd never written a novel before. And a friend of mine who lives in Newcastle had seen in her local paper that there was going to be a Catherine Cookson Award. She saw it because, of course, Catherine Cookson came from that area. And she said, why don't you send your manuscript? And she hadn't read it, this friend, but she heard me speak of it, and she knew it meant a lot to me. So I sent it off with a bit of persuasion, because I really didn't want it to go away. And it won, and it was the first award of the Catherine Cookson Award. So it was a sort of a double delight, really, the fact that the first novel had won that first prize.
Yeah, and that gives us, that is the Sunk Island,
that's the coast
around the Mappleton.
Yes. I changed the name of Mappleton. I called it Tillington.
That's right.
In the book, and some of the other villages I sort of did an amalgam of all the old names which have now gone.
Yeah.
So that's what I did with that one.
But reading them, you can relate to every part of this area.
I hope so. I hope I've given a sufficient description for people around here anyway to be able to relate to that.
But you see, I'm not from this area.
Well, you're not.
But I can still relate to everything you've written.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And
Yes.
then The Children of the Tide.
Yes.
Oh, that was lovely.
You like that one? What was strange about that one, on the cover, there's a picture of, well, in the old cover, actually, they've changed some of the covers now.
Yeah.
On the original cover, there was a picture of a young woman walking along the cliffs and a castellated building at the back.
Yes.
And I just don't, well, obviously I do know how they came up with that picture, because it's from the description I gave in the text. But in fact, if you drive along the old Horsey Road, you can see a castellated building, which is where I actually took the idea from.
Yeah.
And it's just wonderful to see it.
It's so interesting to read your books because it is of this area.
That's right.
I mean, every one of them. But Annie
was lovely. But she was such a down and out, wasn't she?
Yes.
Poor Annie.
Yes.
And yet she managed to struggle through.
Yes. And Emily.
You liked Emily, yeah. Well, poor Emily had a really hard time, didn't she, going off to Australia?
Yes. But I didn't actually resolve that book until I'd read Going Home. And then the story absolutely came
together.
Came together beautifully.
Yes.
And how sad.
I know. Sometimes they are sad, but then, you know, although I'm writing fiction, I am writing about life.
Yes.
And life can be sad. But the reason I wrote that second book, Going Home, when I wrote Emily, I don't know if you recall, but on board that convict ship, there was a child born.
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yes.
And no one knew who he was or where he belonged. And you see, you're getting all sympathetic, aren't you?
Yes.
But I didn't know either who he was or who his parents were. So there was only one way to find out, and that was to write another book.
And I had
And so there was Going Home.
Now I'm coming to my favourite, Rosa's Island.
Oh,
I loved it.
Yes.
But I loved them all.
Yeah.
The only one that I felt the only one that I really couldn't, well, I love it, I love all your books, there's nothing against them at all, but the Doorstep Girls, well, were they really that poor in Hull?
Oh, they were extremely poor. Because at that particular period there was a lot of poverty over the whole of the British Isles.
Yes.
But in Hull in particular there was. There's a wonderful book, a factual book, and I've acknowledged it in the book, called Living and Dying in Hull in the 19th Century. And it gives you a whole rundown of what happened in Hull. There was cholera, there was typhus, there was dysentery. I mean, the workhouse was always full.
Actually,
and they did have a terrible time.
When I read that book, I could smell.
Oh, good.
I got the atmosphere and the smell of those houses.
And did you you didn't like that?
I liked it, I loved it, but I was upset about it.
Yes.
Because people, if it was true, that people have to live like that.
Yes, well, one of the reasons why I do like to do 19th century is because there was so much there that
Yes.
I need to get my teeth into. And there were so many injustices, and not just for the poor people, but for the better off women as well.
Yes.
And I just feel compelled to write about it.
Yes.
So whether or not you like it, it
No, I
did happen.
loved it. I
Yes,
loved it.
It did
but
happen.
it hurt me.
Yes, it does. It
It
does
was
hurt.
a feeling that I had when I read, oh, those poor people.
Yes, yes.
How could they live like it? How did they grow up and get out of that?
Well, a lot of them didn't, of course.
No.
A lot of them died in childhood, and some of them just died of starvation. There was, if they had no job, they had no money, so therefore they had no roof over their heads and no money to buy food.
Not
So
to light fires,
nothing like that. So the workhouse was really the only option, and they didn't want that.
And that comes through in your book.
Yes,
This comes through, so you can't help feeling that.
Yes. Well, I am writing social history as well
Yes,
as writing fiction, of course.
Yes. Of
Yes.
course I keep reading. But back to Rose's Eye.
Oh, back to Rose's Eye. You like Rose's Eye?
I love Rose's
Well,
Eye.
St Cannon, of course, which is what it was based
Yes.
on, is it's a fascinating place. And I just love going there. It's just got a magic of its own, really.
Yeah. And have you ever been across there when it was so wet and dark?
No. I've been in the dark, yes, and I've been when it's been raining.
But you see, when you write about that, I could be with you on those old roads with the old cart.
Yes, well, the time I was writing about, there was still a waterway partly around it, where the North Channel was. So that's gone, of course, now. That's all filled in. But I have, this is back to my imagination, I have sufficient imagination to know what it was like then.
Yes, and in my imagination, when I'm reading them, I'm with you.
You're back there.
I'm going across fences having that baby. Getting help. Yes, that was lovely. And as I said, the Dorset Girls, it's Far From Home, and the latest one, I think, is The Pretty Maiden.
It is, that's
I
right.
read that too.
You've read that as well, good.
Yeah.
Well, that has been very popular, actually. And perhaps I will just tell you, for those who maybe get my books on audio cassette from the library, I'm actually going to do a recording of The Kitchen Maid this month, in August, which will be in the libraries, alone in the libraries. I'm really looking forward to that. I haven't done a recording like that before, although I do record regularly for the Holland District Talking Magazine for the Blind. I haven't actually recorded a book before, but I thought, well, this is all East Riding voices, nearly all Beverley in the Low Wolds.
Yes, that's the Beverley, is the
Yes, it's set in Beverley. So I asked if the book was sold for audio rights, could I do a recording? And they said yes. So I'm going up to Whitley Bay at the end of the month. I'm going to do the recording for that. I'm really looking forward to that.
And people will look forward to listening to you.
Well, I hope so.
Yes, but I've read them, and I think they're marvellous.
Well, you'll be ready, as I say, for the next one, which will be in November.
But I think, have I taken up too much of your time?
Not at all.
I've very enjoyed speaking to you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And thank you ever so much. I really am delighted to have met you properly.
I'm delighted to meet you too, and to be here. Thank you very much for asking
Well,
me.
thank you. And if you need any more information on Valerie Wood books, she has www.valeriewood.co.uk, and all the information you need about Valerie's books is on there. I hope you've enjoyed the speak, us talking. I've enjoyed it ever so much, and I hope Valerie has as well. We do, of course, have a lot of budding aspiring writers here in Holderness, and later on we will be playing a selection of short stories, The Fiction Cafe by the Withensea Writers.